2 weeks passed in agony. Marcus had returned to his penthouse, but the luxury felt hollow and meaningless. He couldn't eat the gourmet meals his chef prepared, couldn't concentrate on business meetings, couldn't sleep in his king-sized bed. Everything reminded him of what he had lost. James, his butler, watched with growing concern as Marcus wandered the empty halls of his mansion like a ghost. "Sir, perhaps you should consider eating something today," James suggested gently, finding Marcus staring out the window toward the neighborhood where Sarah lived. "I destroyed everything, James. The one real thing in my life, and I ruined it with lies. If I may say so, sir, the feelings were real. The friendships you formed, the love you found, that wasn't false, even if the circumstances were." Marcus turned from the window. "She'll never forgive me. I watched her struggle with money while I had billions. I let her offer me her life savings. How does someone come back from that level of deception?" "Perhaps, sir, the question isn't whether she'll forgive you, but what you're willing to do to prove your feelings were genuine." That afternoon, Marcus made a decision. He called David Chen and agreed to meet him at an expensive restaurant downtown, the kind of place Marcus used to frequent regularly. David was already waiting, smirking with satisfaction. "So the billionaire is ready to return to reality? Tired of playing in the dirt with common people?" "I want to make a deal with you," Marcus said, sitting across from his rival. "I'm listening." "You want me out of that neighborhood? Fine. But I want something in return. You leave everyone there alone. No forced evictions, no rent increases designed to drive people out, no development projects that destroy the community." David leaned back, intrigued. "What's in it for me?" "I'll sell you my downtown properties at 20% below market value. The ones you've been trying to buy for years. That's a $50 million discount. Interesting? And all I have to do is leave some coffee shop and a few apartments alone? That's all." David extended his hand. "Deal. Though I have to ask, why go to such lengths for people who probably hate you now?" Marcus shook his hand grimly. "Because it's the right thing to do." Over the next month, Marcus threw himself into making things right, even if no one would ever know he was behind it. Through shell companies and anonymous donations, he ensured that every person in Sarah's neighborhood who was struggling financially received help. Mrs. Rodriguez's medical bills were mysteriously paid. The Martinez family's children received full college scholarships. Every nurse at Sarah's hospital got an unexpected bonus. But Marcus knew that money alone wouldn't fix what he had broken. He needed to prove that the man Sarah had fallen in love with was real, not just a character he had played. The opportunity came when he learned that the free clinic where Sarah volunteered was about to close due to lack of funding. The clinic served hundreds of low-income patients who had nowhere else to go for medical care. Instead of simply writing a check, Marcus decided to do something different. He contacted Tony and the construction crew, explaining that he had found work for them renovating and expanding the clinic. He didn't tell them he was funding the project. For 3 months, Marcus worked alongside his former co-workers, laying brick and pouring concrete, this time for free. His hands blistered again, his back ached, but it felt right in a way that board meetings never had. Sarah saw him there on his second day but refused to speak to him. She would quickly look away whenever their eyes met, her face a mask of hurt and anger. "Why are you here?" Tony asked him during a lunch break. "I thought you'd moved on to another job." "This project matters," Marcus said simply. "This clinic helps people who have nowhere else to go." "Yeah, but you're working for free. How are you paying your rent?" Marcus had prepared for this question. "I got some money from a family inheritance, enough to get by for a while. I wanted to use it for something meaningful." The work continued through the winter. Marcus showed up every day, working in rain and snow, never missing a shift. Slowly, he began to notice Sarah watching him from the clinic windows. Her expression was still guarded, but the raw anger had faded into something more complex. One afternoon in March, as Marcus was finishing some detailed work on the clinic's new children's play area, Sarah finally approached him. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, her voice carefully neutral. Marcus set down his tools and looked at her. She was as beautiful as ever, but he could see the tiredness around her eyes, the weight of extra shifts she had been taking to avoid dealing with her feelings. "Because this is who I really am," he said quietly. "Not the billionaire in the penthouse, not the construction worker character I played. This person doing this work for people who need help. That's the real me." "How am I supposed to believe that?" "How do I know this isn't just another act, another way to manipulate me?" Marcus gestured toward the clinic. "I've been here every day for 3 months, working without pay. Nobody forced me to be here. There are no cameras, no audience, no one to impress. I'm here because this matters to me." Sarah was quiet for a long time, studying his face. "The money you're using for this project, is it really from an inheritance?" Marcus looked into her eyes and made a choice. "No, it's mine. I'm funding this entire renovation." "So you're still lying to me?" "I'm trying to stop lying. Yes, I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes, but I'm learning that having money and choosing how to use it are two different things. Why should I trust anything you say?" "Because I'm not asking you to trust my words. I'm asking you to judge my actions. Look around, Sarah. This clinic is going to serve thousands of people who need medical care. I could have just written a check and walked away. Instead, I've spent months working alongside people who probably hate me because the work itself matters." Sarah looked around at the renovated clinic, which was nearly complete. It was beautiful and functional, designed specifically for the community it would serve. "The construction workers don't hate you," she said softly. "Tony told me they're grateful you came back to help with this project. They think you're one of the most dedicated people they've ever worked with." "What do you think?" Marcus asked. Sarah met his eyes for the first time in months. "I think you broke my heart. I think you lied to me about fundamental things. But I also think—" She paused, struggling with her words. "I think maybe the person I fell in love with wasn't entirely fake. He wasn't fake at all. He was just a man trying to figure out who he wanted to be, and you helped me become that person." "Marcus, even if I could forgive the lying, we come from completely different worlds. You have billions of dollars. I count change for coffee. How could that ever work?" Marcus took off his work gloves and reached into his pocket, pulling out a small velvet box. Sarah's eyes widened. "I know you have every reason not to trust me. I know I don't deserve another chance. But I need you to know something." He opened the box, revealing a simple, elegant ring. "I bought this before you found out the truth. I was going to propose to Sarah, the nurse who was dating Marcus, the construction worker. Two people who were equals, who understood each other's struggles, who built something real together." Sarah stared at the ring, tears forming in her eyes. "I can't take back the lies, and I can't pretend the money doesn't exist. But I can promise you this. If you give me another chance, I'll spend every day proving that the man you fell in love with is who I really am. Not because of what I own, but because of what you helped me become." "And what about the money? Do you expect me to just accept being with someone who has billions when I worry about paying rent? The money will always be there, but it doesn't have to define us. I've learned that the happiest I've ever been was in that tiny apartment, eating takeout pizza and watching old movies with you. I don't need luxury, I need you." Sarah wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "If we did this, if I said yes, what would that look like? I'm not going to quit my job and become some rich man's trophy wife. I wouldn't want you to. The work you do matters too much, but maybe we could find ways to do more of it. Build more clinics, fund medical programs, help more people who need it, together. You'd really do that? Use your wealth to help people instead of just making more money?" "Sarah, being with you taught me what real wealth looks like. It's not numbers in a bank account. It's coming home to someone who loves you, being part of a community that cares about each other, doing work that makes a difference. I had billions of dollars and I was miserable. I found real wealth when I found you. Sarah looked at the ring again, then at Marcus's face. I'm still angry with you. It's going to take time for me to trust you completely again. I understand. I'll wait as long as it takes. And I'm not going to change who I am. I'll still volunteer. At the clinic, still help my neighbors, still worry about people who are struggling. I love who you are. I don't want you to change anything. Sarah took a deep breath. Ask me again. But this time, ask me as yourself. Not as a character, not as someone pretending to be something else. Ask me as Marcus Wellington, the man who learned how to care about other people. Marcus knelt down on the clinic floor, still wearing his work clothes, his hands dirty from construction work. Sarah Chen, you taught me what love really means. You showed me how to be the man I always wanted to be. Will you marry me? A week later, Marcus woke to his phone ringing with an unknown number. It was Tony, the construction foreman, and his voice was filled with excitement and confusion. Marcus, you're not going to believe this. Some company called Apex Holdings just contacted me. They're paying everything we're owed, plus a 20% bonus for our trouble. They said they're taking over the construction project and want to hire our entire crew at higher wages. Marcus's heart pounded. That's incredible, Tony. Did they say why? Something about wanting to support local workers who got treated unfairly. I've never heard of anything like this happening before. It's like a miracle. Tony's voice cracked with emotion. Jimmy can pay for his daughter's college now. Carlos won't lose his house. We're all going to be okay. After hanging up, Marcus felt a mixture of joy and guilt. He had helped his friends, but they had no idea the help came from him. The deception was eating at him more each day. The good news continued throughout the week. Miguel called to tell him that the building's new owners had contacted him with an incredible offer. His rent would actually decrease, and they were helping him renovate the coffee shop to make it even better for the community. Is a Christmas miracle in November? Miguel laughed. The new owners, they say they want to preserve neighborhood character. They even ask my opinion on what other businesses should go in empty spaces. Sarah was overjoyed when Marcus told her about the construction crew getting paid. This gives me so much hope, she said, hugging him tightly. Sometimes good things do happen to good people, but Marcus's relief was short-lived. That Friday afternoon, as he was leaving the construction site, a black sedan pulled up beside him. The window rolled down, revealing a man in an expensive suit with a familiar face, David Chen, a business rival from his real world. Well, well, Marcus Wellington, the billionaire construction worker. This is rich even for you. Marcus's blood turned cold. I think you have me confused with someone else. David laughed. Please, I've been tracking your little charity projects through shell companies. Apex Holdings, the mysterious building purchase. Very generous of you, though I have to wonder why you're playing dress-up with the working class. What do you want, David? Just enjoying the show. Though I'm curious. Does your little girlfriend know she's been dating one of the richest men in the country? Or does she think she's fallen in love with some regular guy who swings a hammer for a living? Marcus felt trapped. David Chen was notorious for his ruthless business tactics and his love of gossip. If he decided to expose Marcus's secret, he could destroy everything. This doesn't concern you. Oh, but it does. See, I'm developing a property portfolio in this neighborhood, driving up real estate values. Your little community preservation project is interfering with my plans. David's smile was cold. But I'm willing to make a deal. Pull out of your local charity work, and I won't tell your construction buddies and your nurse girlfriend who you really are. And if I refuse? Then everyone finds out the truth. Wonder how they'll feel, knowing they've been befriended by someone who was just playing pretend? How do you think little Sarah will react when she discovers the man she loves has been lying to her every day for months? David drove away, leaving Marcus standing on the sidewalk with his world crumbling around him. He had 24 hours to decide whether to abandon the community he had grown to love or face the consequences of his deception being exposed by someone else. That evening, Marcus sat in Sarah's apartment, watching her prepare for another night shift. She was humming softly, happy about the recent good news in their community, completely unaware that her world was about to shatter. "You're quiet tonight," she observed, sitting beside him. "Are you worried about something?" Marcus looked into her trusting eyes and realized he couldn't let someone else tell her the truth. She deserved to hear it from him, no matter how much it might hurt. "Sarah, we need to talk. There's something important I need to tell you." Her expression immediately became concerned. "What is it? You're scaring me." Marcus took her hands in his, trying to memorize the feeling of her trusting touch. "What I'm about to tell you is going to change everything between us. I've been lying to you since the day we met." Sarah's face went pale. "Are you married? Do you have a family somewhere?" "No, nothing like that. Sarah, I'm not who you think I am." Marcus took a deep breath. "My real name is Marcus Wellington. I own Wellington Industries, one of the largest construction and real estate companies in the country. I'm worth about $4 billion. Sarah stared at him in silence for a long moment, then laughed. "That's not funny, Marcus. Whatever's wrong, just tell me the truth." "This is the truth. I've been pretending to be a construction worker because I wanted to find someone who could love me for who I am as a person, not for my money." The laughter died on Sarah's lips as she saw his serious expression. "You're not joking." "I'm not joking. The apartment I live in, the job at the construction site, all of it was fake. I hired people to help me create this identity because I was tired of women only wanting me for my wealth." Sarah dropped his hands and stood up, backing away from him. $4 billion? You're telling me you're a billionaire?" "Yes." "And you've been lying to me for months? Watching me worry about money? Letting me offer you my savings when you thought I was broke? Pretending to understand what it's like to struggle?" Her voice was rising with each word. "Sarah, please let me explain." "Explain what? How you decided to play pretend with real people's lives. How you thought it would be fun to see how the poor people live." Tears were streaming down her face now. "I told you things, Marcus. I shared my fears about money, my family's struggles, my dreams that I thought were too expensive to ever come true, and the whole time you were sitting there with more money than I could spend in 100 lifetimes." It wasn't like that. My feelings for you are completely real. Everything about our relationship except my background is true. How can anything be true when it's built on lies?" Sarah was pacing now, her hands shaking. "Do you have any idea how humiliated I feel? How stupid I feel for counting change at the coffee shop in front of you? For worrying about rent and bills and offering to pay for dates I could barely afford?" Marcus felt tears in his own eyes. "I never wanted to make you feel stupid. You're the most intelligent, compassionate person I've ever met. That's why I fell in love with you." "You fell in love with me?" Sarah spun around to face him. "You don't even know what love means. Love is about trust and honesty and sharing your real life with someone. You've been playing a character, Marcus. You've been acting in some kind of twisted social experiment, and I was your test subject. That's not how it was. Get out." Sarah's voice was quiet but firm. "Get out of my apartment, get out of my life, and go back to your real world where you can buy whatever you want, including people's affection." "Sarah, please, give me a chance to make this right. Make it right. You think your money can fix this? You think you can just write me a check and make up for months of deception?" She was crying harder now. "The worst part is that I actually believed you cared about people like Miguel, like my neighbors, like me. But we were all just entertainment for you, weren't we?" "No, that's not true. This community, these friendships, they changed my life. You changed my life. I changed your life? I didn't change anything. I was just part of your game. Sarah opened her front door. Please leave. Now. Marcus stood slowly, his heart breaking. Sarah, I know you hate me right now, but I need you to know that every feeling I have for you is real. The man you fell in love with, that's who I really am, inside. The man I fell in love with doesn't exist, Sarah said quietly. He was just a character you were playing. As Marcus walked toward the door, he turned one last time. The money I have, the company I own, none of it matters compared to what I found here with you. I would give up everything to go back to being the person you thought I was. But you can't, Sarah said sadly, because that person was never real. The door closed behind Marcus with a finality that echoed through his chest. He stood in the hallway for several minutes, listening to Sarah crying inside, knowing he had destroyed the best thing that had ever happened to him. Walking back to his small apartment for what he knew would be the last time, Marcus realized that David Chen had been right about one thing. The truth had destroyed everything. But he also knew that continuing the lie would have been worse. Now he had to face the consequences of his choices and figure out if there was any way to prove to Sarah that the man she had fallen in love with was real, even if everything else about his life had been a deception. 3 months into their relationship, Marcus was happier than he had ever been. He and Sarah had fallen into a comfortable routine of spending evenings together when her hospital schedule allowed. He had learned to cook simple meals, something he had never needed to do in his previous life. They would make dinner together in her tiny kitchen, talking about their days, planning small adventures for weekends. Marcus had even started forgetting about his real life for hours at a time. The construction work had become genuinely satisfying. His friendships with his co-workers were real and meaningful, and his love for Sarah grew stronger every day. He had never imagined that happiness could come from such simple things. But on a rainy Thursday morning in November, everything changed. Marcus arrived at the construction site to find Tony pacing nervously, talking rapidly on his phone. The other workers were gathered in small groups, their faces serious and worried. "What's going on?" Marcus asked Jimmy, one of the older workers. "Company's in trouble, man. Big trouble. Tony's been on the phone all morning trying to figure out what's happening." Tony ended his call and gathered the crew around him. His face was grim, and Marcus could see the stress lines around his eyes. "Listen up, everybody. I'm going to give it to you straight because you deserve to know what's happening. The company that was supposed to pay us for the last 3 months of work just went bankrupt. They're claiming they don't have the money to pay contractors." "Obey," murmur of shocked voices rippled through the group. "What does that mean for us?" asked Carlos, a young man with 2 small children. "It means we're not getting paid for the work we've already done, and it means this project is shutting down immediately. I've been trying to find us another job, but with winter coming and the economy the way it is, there's nothing out there right now." The silence that followed was deafening. Marcus looked around at his co-workers' faces and saw fear, anger, and desperation. These men had families depending on them, rent and mortgages due, children who needed food and clothing. "How is this legal?" demanded Pete, a man in his 50s who had been supporting his elderly parents. "It's not about legal or illegal," Tony said sadly. "When a company goes bankrupt, contractors are last in line to get paid. The lawyers and banks come first. We'll be lucky to see 10 cents on the dollar, and that could take years." 3 months of pay," Jimmy said quietly. "I was counting on that money for my daughter's college tuition." Marcus felt sick. These men had worked 60-hour weeks in all kinds of weather, building something with their hands, earning every dollar through honest labor. Now they were losing everything through no fault of their own. "There's got to be something we can do," Marcus said, his voice tight with emotion. "Like what?" Tony asked. "Sue them? With what money for lawyers? Face it, boys, we got screwed. Story of the working man's life." As the crew dispersed, each man dealing with his own version of the same, Devastating news. Marcus felt a rage building inside him that he had never experienced. In his real world, he had seen business deals go bad, companies fail, people lose money. But it had always been abstract numbers on financial statements. This was real people facing real consequences. That evening, Marcus sat in Sarah's apartment, trying to act normal while his mind raced. Sarah was exhausted from a difficult shift and didn't notice his distraction initially. "How was work today?" she asked, curling up next to him on her small couch. "Not great. The project got shut down. Company went bankrupt." Sarah sat up immediately, her nurse's instincts recognizing crisis. "Oh, Marcus, I'm so sorry. What does that mean for your pay?" "We're not getting paid for the last 3 months of work." Sarah's face went pale. She understood exactly what this meant for a construction worker living paycheck to paycheck. "That's terrible. How much money is that?" Marcus had calculated it earlier. For the character he was playing, it would be about $12,000. Money that would represent months of food, rent, and basic necessities. "Enough that I'm in real trouble," he said quietly. Without hesitation, Sarah got up and went to her bedroom, returning with a small wooden box. Marcus watched as she counted out bills, clearly money she had been saving carefully. "I have about $800 here. It's not much, but it can help with your rent and food until you find another job." Marcus stared at the money in her hands, knowing it probably represented months of careful saving, money she had set aside by working extra shifts and denying herself small luxuries. "Sarah, I can't take your savings." "Yes, you can. That's what people do when they care about each other. We help." Her voice was firm, brooking no argument. "I know you'd do the same for me." The simple generosity of the gesture hit Marcus like a physical blow. Here was a woman who counted every dollar, who put off her own dental work to save money, offering everything she had to help him through a crisis that wasn't even real for him. "I love you," he said, the words coming out before he could stop. "Them." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "I love you too. We'll figure this out together." That night, as Sarah slept beside him, Marcus lay awake staring at the ceiling. The envelope with her money sat on the nightstand, a testament to her character and a reminder of his deception. He could solve everyone's problems with a single phone call. He could pay the workers what they were owed, help Sarah with her bills, ensure no one suffered, but doing so would mean revealing who he really was, and he wasn't sure their relationship could survive that truth. The next morning brought even worse news. Marcus arrived at the coffee shop to find Miguel behind the counter with red eyes and a heavy expression. "My friend, you look as sad as I feel," Miguel said, pouring Marcus's usual coffee. "What's wrong, Miguel?" "The building owner, he sold to developers. They want to tear down everything, build expensive condos. I have 30 days to find new place for my shop, but the rent they want everywhere else is 3 times what I pay here." Marcus felt his chest tighten. Miguel's coffee shop wasn't just a business. It was a community center. Regular customers came here not just for coffee, but for the sense of belonging Miguel created. Families celebrated birthdays here. Students studied at the worn tables. Elderly neighbors met for daily conversations. "Isn't there anything you can do? Fight the eviction?" "With what money? These developers have teams of lawyers. I'm just one small business owner." Miguel shrugged with resigned sadness. "Maybe it's time to retire, go live with my daughter in Phoenix." But this place means everything to the neighborhood. But meaning doesn't pay lawyers or new rent. As Marcus walked to meet Sarah for lunch, he passed more signs of the gentrification that was destroying the community he had come to love. Small family businesses were being replaced by chains, affordable apartments were being converted to luxury condos, and long-time residents were being forced out by rising costs. Sarah was waiting for him at their usual spot in the park, and he could see immediately that she had news to share. "I heard about Miguel's coffee shop," she said as he sat down beside her. "Mrs. Rodriguez told me this morning. She's heartbroken. That place has been her daily routine for 15 years. "It's not right," Marcus said, his frustration evident. No. But what can people like us do? We don't have money or power or influence. We just try to take care of each other and hope for the best. People like us." There was that phrase again, and it hit Marcus even harder now. Sarah had no idea she was talking to someone who had exactly the kind of money and power needed to solve these problems. Someone who could buy the building, keep Miguel's rent low, ensure the workers got paid, and fix everything that was wrong. That afternoon, Marcus made a decision that terrified him. He called James, his butler, from his apartment. "Sir, it's wonderful to hear your voice. How is your experiment progressing?" "James, I need you to do something for me. There's a construction crew that got cheated out of their pay. I want to make sure they get every dollar they're owed, plus a bonus. And there's a coffee shop owner who's about to lose his lease. I want you to buy that building and ensure his rent never increases." "Of course, sir. Should I set up intermediary companies to handle the transactions, maintain your anonymity?" "Yes. No one can know this came from me." "Not yet." "Very good, sir. May I ask how much longer you plan to continue this adventure?" Marcus looked around his small apartment thinking about Sarah's love, his friendships with the construction crew, the community that had embraced him. "I don't know, James. For the first time in my life, I'm exactly where I belong. But I'm not sure I can keep lying to the people I care about." "Perhaps, sir. The question is not whether to tell them the truth, but when and how to tell them in a way that preserves what you've built." After hanging up, Marcus realized James was right. The deception couldn't continue forever, but the timing of the revelation would determine whether his relationship survived. He just hoped he would have the courage to find the right moment before the decision was made for him. Marcus arrived at Rosa's diner 15 minutes early, his palms sweating despite the cool evening air. He had changed clothes 3 times in his small apartment, trying to look nice without appearing too polished. His final choice was clean jeans, a button-down shirt he had bought from a discount store, and his work boots, freshly cleaned. The diner was exactly the kind of place he would never have noticed in his previous life. Red vinyl booths, checkered floors, and the smell of honest cooking. A handwritten menu hung on the wall with most entrees under $10. Marcus found himself genuinely excited about experiencing something so completely different from his usual 5-star restaurants. Sarah arrived exactly on time, wearing a simple blue dress and the same worn coat she always had. Without her hospital scrubs, Marcus could see she had a naturally elegant way of moving, despite her obvious exhaustion from a long shift. "Sorry, I'm a bit tired," she said, sliding into the booth across from him. 3-car accident this afternoon, plus we had 2 heart attacks and a construction worker who fell off scaffolding." "A construction worker?" Marcus asked, genuinely concerned. "Is he okay?" "He'll recover, but he was lucky. Fell 2 stories and only broke his arm and a few ribs. His crew chief was there the whole time, wouldn't leave until he knew his guy was stable." Sarah's expression warmed. "It's nice to see how much you all care about each other in that industry." Marcus felt a pang of guilt. He had never shown that kind of loyalty to any of his employees. In his corporate world, injured workers were insurance, claims and liability issues, not people with families who depended on them. "So tell me about yourself, Marcus," Sarah said, studying the menu. "How long have you been in construction?" Marcus had prepared for this question, but sitting across from her honest face made lying feel heavier than he expected. "Not too long, actually. I'm still learning. What about you? Have you always wanted to be a nurse?" Sarah's eyes lit up. "Ever since I was little. My grandmother got sick when I was 8, and I spent a lot of time in hospitals with her. I saw how much difference the nurses made, not just medically, but emotionally. They were the ones who held her hand, who remembered her favorite candy, who made her laugh even when she was scared. "That's beautiful," Marcus said, and meant it. "You must be good at your job." "I hope so. Some days are harder than others. Last week we lost a young father in a car accident. His wife was 8 months pregnant and—" Sarah paused, composing herself. "Sorry, I shouldn't talk about such sad things on a first date." "Don't apologize. Your work matters. You save lives." "What I do is nothing compared to what you do," Sarah said, surprising him. "You build homes where families make memories, hospitals where people like me can help others, schools where children learn. Construction workers build the foundation of everything we need." Marcus had never thought about his construction companies that way. To him, they were just profit centers, ways to multiply his wealth. But Sarah saw the human value in the work, the way it contributed to society. Their conversation flowed naturally throughout dinner. Sarah talked about her parents, immigrants who had worked multiple jobs to give their children better opportunities. Marcus found himself sharing more truth than he intended, talking about feeling disconnected from family, though he left out the details about boarding schools and inherited wealth. "Do you have brothers or sisters?" Sarah asked. "No, just me. My parents died when I was young." This was true, though he omitted the part about inheriting a business empire. "I'm sorry. That must have been so hard." The genuine sympathy in her voice made Marcus's chest tight. When his parents died, people had expressed condolences, but they were really thinking about the inheritance, the business opportunities, the social connections. Sarah's concern was purely human. When the check came, Sarah immediately reached for her wallet. "Let me pay half." "No, I asked you out. This is my treat." "Are you sure? I know construction doesn't pay that much, and this place isn't exactly cheap for people like us." People like us. The phrase hit Marcus with unexpected force. In Sarah's mind, they were equals, both working-class people carefully watching their budgets. The irony was almost overwhelming. "I'm sure," he said, handing cash to the waitress, making sure to tip well but not suspiciously so. After dinner, they walked slowly through the neighborhood. The streets were lined with small houses, kids playing on porches, families visible through lit windows having their own dinners and conversations. It was a world Marcus had never experienced, and he found it more appealing than any luxury resort he had ever visited. "I should probably get home," Sarah said as they reached her building. "Early shift tomorrow." "I had a really good time tonight," Marcus said. "Would you like to do this again sometime?" Sarah looked at him carefully, the same evaluating expression he had seen at the coffee shop. "I'd like that. But Marcus, I should be honest about something." His heart stopped. Had she figured out who he was? "I don't date much. My job takes up most of my time, and I don't have money for fancy entertainment or expensive clothes. If you're looking for someone who can match you financially or socially, I'm not that person." Relief and admiration flooded through Marcus simultaneously. Even in this, she was putting honesty first, making sure he understood her situation before they got more involved. "Sarah, I asked you out because of who you are, not what you have. I don't need fancy things. I just want to spend time with you." Her smile was radiant. "Then yes, I'd very much like to see you again." Over the following weeks, Marcus and Sarah began spending more time together. Their dates were simple: walks in the park, coffee at Miguel's shop, sharing pizza while watching old movies at her apartment. Marcus discovered that these simple pleasures were more satisfying than any expensive entertainment he had ever enjoyed. Sarah's apartment was tiny but clean and warm. She had decorated it with things that clearly meant something to her: photos of family and friends, artwork from her nieces and nephews, a few books she had read multiple times. Everything had a story, a memory attached. "I know it's not much," she said the first time he visited. "It's perfect," Marcus replied. And surprisingly, he meant it. The apartment felt more like home than his penthouse ever had. Marcus met Sarah's friends from the hospital, a diverse group of nurses, doctors, and support staff who clearly adored her. They welcomed him warmly once they saw how happy he made Sarah. These people worked incredibly hard for modest wages, yet they were generous with their time and affection for each other. He also met some of her neighbors, like Mrs. Patterson, the elderly woman upstairs who Sarah checked on daily, and the Martinez family next door whose kids Sarah tutored in math when their parents were working. "Sarah takes care of everyone," Mrs. Patterson told Marcus one afternoon. "When I was in the hospital last year, she visited me every day after her own shifts, brought me magazines, and made sure I wasn't alone." Marcus began to understand that Sarah didn't just work as a nurse. She lived as a caregiver. It was who she was at her core, not just what she did for a paycheck. Meanwhile, Marcus was learning to navigate his double life more carefully. His construction co-workers had accepted him completely, often inviting him for beers after work or to weekend barbecues. Tony, the foreman, had even started talking about promoting him to crew leader, but maintaining the deception was becoming more challenging emotionally. Every time Sarah worried about money, every time she worked a double shift to pay bills, every time she couldn't buy something she needed, Marcus felt the weight of his lies. The worst moment came when Sarah mentioned needing dental work, but putting it off because she couldn't afford it. "It's just a small cavity, but the dentist wants $400. I'll have to wait until I can save up," she said casually while they were making dinner in her kitchen. Marcus almost broke character completely. $400 was less than he spent on lunch at his usual restaurants. He wanted to pull out his phone and transfer money to her account immediately. Instead, he had to stand there and nod sympathetically, pretending he understood financial struggles he had never actually faced. That night, Marcus lay awake in his small apartment, staring at the ceiling and questioning everything. Was he being cruel? Letting Sarah struggle when he could help? Was his quest for authentic love worth watching someone he cared about suffer? But then he remembered how she looked at him, the way she smiled when she saw him, the genuine affection in her voice when she talked about their future together. She loved Marcus the construction worker, not Marcus the billionaire. For the first time in his life, someone loved him for who he was as a person. Still, he knew this couldn't continue forever. Eventually, he would have to tell her the truth. The question that terrified him was whether their love could survive his deception, or whether she would feel betrayed and manipulated when she learned who he really was. For now, Marcus pushed those fears aside and focused on being the man Sarah deserved, even if he wasn't being completely honest about who that man really was. The coffee shop on Maple Street had become Marcus's favorite place to grab breakfast before work. It was a small, family-owned place with mismatched chairs and the best coffee in the neighborhood. The owner, an immigrant from El Salvador, always greeted customers with genuine warmth, remembering their usual orders and asking about their families. Marcus had been coming here for 3 months now, always ordering the same thing: black coffee and a plain bagel. He couldn't afford much more on his bricklayer wages, or at least he pretended he couldn't. The simple breakfast had become a morning ritual he genuinely enjoyed. That Tuesday morning started like any other, until she walked in. Sarah Chen entered, the coffee shop like sunshine breaking through storm clouds. She wore scrubs under a worn winter coat, her black hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. There was something about her smile that made Marcus forget what he was ordering. "The usual, my friend?" asked Miguel, the owner, looking at Marcus with amusement as he stared. Yes." "The usual," Marcus managed, still watching the woman at the counter. Sarah was counting change in her palm, clearly calculating carefully. "Could I get a small coffee, and do you have any day-old pastries? Something less expensive?" Miguel's expression softened. "For you? I have fresh muffin. Same price as day-old. You work at hospital helping people. Is good karma for my business." "I can't let you lose money on me," Sarah protested, But Miguel was already wrapping up a blueberry muffin. My daughter wants to be nurse like you someday. You inspire her. This is small, thank you. Marcus watched this exchange with fascination. In his wealthy world, people threw money around carelessly, never thinking twice about the cost of anything. But here was someone who counted every dollar, and a business owner who treated customers like family. As Sarah turned to find a seat, she nearly collided with Marcus. Her coffee sloshed slightly, and she quickly apologized. "Oh, I'm so sorry. I wasn't watching where I was going." "No problem at all," Marcus said, steadying her elbow. "Are you okay?" Up close, her eyes were even more striking. They were kind eyes, tired from long shifts but still full of compassion. She had the face of someone who cared deeply about others, with worry lines that came from genuine concern, not stress about stock prices. "I'm fine, thank you. Just running late for work," she said, glancing at her watch. "You work at the hospital?" Marcus asked, remembering her conversation with Miguel. "County General. I'm a nurse in the emergency room." She paused, studying his face. "I haven't seen you around here before." "I've been coming here for a few months. I work construction, usually grab coffee before my shift starts." Something in her expression changed, became warmer. "That's honest work. My father was a construction worker before he hurt his back. He always said there was honor in building things that last." Before Marcus could respond, Sarah's phone rang. She answered quickly, her professional voice taking over. "This is Sarah. Yes, I can come in early. How many casualties?" "Okay. I'll be there in 20 minutes. She ended the call and looked apologetically at Marcus. "I'm sorry, there's been an accident. Multiple car pileup on the interstate. They need all hands on deck." "Of course. Go. People need you." Sarah paused at the door, looking back. "I hope I see you here again. I never got your name." "Marcus. And you're Sarah." "Good memory," she smiled, then rushed out into the morning. Marcus stood there for several minutes after she left, something stirring in his chest that he hadn't felt in years. This wasn't the calculated attraction he was used to with women who wanted his money. This felt real, authentic, terrifying. Over the next few weeks, Marcus found himself arriving at the coffee shop earlier, hoping to see Sarah. Some mornings, she was there, usually rushing between shifts, sometimes looking exhausted after working all night. But she always had a smile for Miguel and a kind word for other customers. Marcus learned more about her through these brief encounters. She had grown up in the neighborhood, worked 2 jobs to pay for nursing school, and sent money to help support her parents. She volunteered at a free clinic on weekends and had rescued 3 cats that she couldn't afford to keep, but couldn't bear to abandon. Everything about Sarah was the opposite of the women in Marcus's real world. She was genuinely selfless, working to help others rather than climbing social ladders. She wore the same few outfits repeatedly, not because she was unfashionable, but because she spent her money on necessities and helping others. One morning, Marcus overheard Sarah on the phone with someone, clearly upset. "I understand, but my rent's not late yet. I have until Friday." She was speaking quietly, trying not to let other customers hear. "Yes, I know about the maintenance issues, but I'm working double shifts this week. I'll have the money." After she hung up, Marcus could see she was fighting back tears. Without thinking, he approached her table. "Sorry, I couldn't help but overhear. Landlord troubles?" Sarah looked up, embarrassed. "It's nothing I can't handle. The building has some problems, and the landlord wants to renovate. He's trying to get all the tenants to move out by raising rent and being difficult about everything." "That's terrible. Isn't there somewhere you can report him?" "With what money?" "For a lawyer." Sarah laughed bitterly. "These are the problems you deal with when you're not rich. You just figure it out and keep moving forward." Marcus's heart ached hearing this. With one phone call, he could solve all her problems. He could buy her building, fire the landlord, and ensure she never worried about rent again. But he couldn't do any of that without revealing who he really was. Instead, he did something that surprised himself. "I know this might sound forward, but would you like to have dinner sometime? Nothing fancy, just, I'd like to get to know you better." Sarah studied his face carefully. In his wealthy world, asking someone out was a game, a transaction. But looking into Sarah's eyes, Marcus realized she was trying to read his intentions, to see if he was genuine or just another guy trying to take advantage. "I work a lot of hours," she said slowly. "I understand. Whenever works for you, even if it's just grabbing a quick bite between shifts." Something in his tone must have convinced her because her expression softened. "I get off at 6 tomorrow. There's a little place on 3rd Street that makes good food cheap. Nothing fancy." Perfect. Nothing fancy sounds exactly right. As Marcus walked to his construction job that day, he realized he was more nervous about this dinner than he had been, about any business deal worth millions. For the first time in his adult life, he was asking someone out as himself, not as his bank account. Sarah represented everything he had been searching for without knowing it. She was kind without expecting reward, hard-working without complaint, and beautiful in a way that had nothing to do with expensive clothes or professional makeup. But as his excitement grew, so did his anxiety. How long could he maintain this deception? What would happen when she discovered the truth? Would she hate him for lying, or would she suddenly change, like everyone else, when she learned about his wealth? For now, Marcus pushed those worries aside. Tomorrow night, he would simply be a construction worker taking a nurse to dinner. It would be the most important meal of his life. Marcus Wellington had everything money could buy, yet he felt empty inside his 40-story penthouse overlooking the city. At 35, he owned construction companies across 3 countries, luxury hotels, and more wealth than most people could imagine. But every woman who approached him saw only dollar signs, not the man behind the fortune. Standing on his marble balcony that morning, Marcus watched construction workers building a new apartment complex across the street. These men worked with their hands, earned honest wages, and seemed genuinely happy during their lunch breaks. An idea formed in his mind that would change everything. "Sir, your breakfast is ready?" called James, his personal butler for the past 10 years. "James, I need you to do something unusual for me," Marcus said, turning from the window. "I want to become invisible." The elderly butler raised an eyebrow but remained professional. "Invisible, sir?" "I want to disappear from this life temporarily. No one can know who I really am. Can you help me become someone completely different?" Within a week, Marcus had transformed completely. Gone were the expensive suits, replaced by worn jeans and work boots. His manicured hands now had dirt under the nails. He had learned to speak differently, dropping the refined accent he had developed at private schools. Most importantly, he had secured a job as a bricklayer with Thompson Construction, a small company that had no idea they were hiring a billionaire. The first day on the construction site was harder than Marcus had ever imagined. His soft hands blistered within hours. The heavy bricks made his back ache. The other workers looked at him with suspicion, wondering why this new guy seemed so awkward with basic tools. "Hey, new guy," shouted Tony, the foreman. "You ever done this before? You're laying those bricks like you're building a birthday cake." Marcus wiped sweat from his forehead. "Still learning, sir. I'll get better." "Better learn fast, or you'll be looking for work somewhere else," Tony grunted, walking away. During lunch break, Marcus sat alone, eating a simple sandwich from a brown bag instead of his usual 5-star meals. The other workers gathered in small groups, talking about their families, weekend plans, and money troubles. For the first time in years, Marcus heard real conversations about real problems. "My daughter needs new shoes for school," one worker was saying. "But with rent due next week, I don't know how we'll manage both," another man nodded. I hear you, brother. My wife's been working double shifts at the diner just to keep up with the bills. These men had so little compared to Marcus, yet they seemed more content than anyone in his wealthy social circle. They cared about each other, shared their lunches, and helped when someone was struggling. This was something Marcus had never experienced in his world of business deals and fake smiles. After 2 weeks on the job, Marcus finally started fitting in. His hands had toughened, his back had strengthened, and he could lay bricks with decent speed. The other workers began including him in their conversations, and he discovered something he had been missing his entire life: genuine friendship. But the real test came when he decided to extend his experiment beyond just work. Marcus rented a small, run-down apartment in a working-class neighborhood. The paint was peeling, the plumbing was questionable, and the heat barely worked. Yet somehow, it felt more like home than his mansion ever had. His neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez, was an elderly woman who lived alone with her cat. She often struggled with heavy grocery bags, and Marcus began helping her without being asked. She would invite him for coffee and homemade cookies, treating him like family despite knowing him for only a few weeks. "You're a good boy," she would say, patting his hand. "Your mother raised you right." If only she knew, Marcus thought. His mother had died when he was young, and he had been raised by nannies and boarding schools. Mrs. Rodriguez showed him more maternal warmth in a few weeks than he had experienced in decades. The construction crew also began treating him like a brother. When Marcus pretended to worry about paying rent, they took up a collection to help him out. When he got genuinely sick from the flu, Tony brought him soup and medicine, grumbling about it but clearly caring. "Can't have you dying on us," Tony said, setting the soup on Marcus's rickety kitchen table. Who else would mess up the bricklaying so creatively? For the first time in his life, Marcus understood what it meant to be part of a real community. These people cared about each other not because of what they could gain, but simply because it was right. They shared what little they had and supported each other through difficult times. Meanwhile, in his real life, nobody had even noticed his absence. His assistant handled business calls, his board of directors continued making decisions, and his social circle assumed he was traveling. The woman he had been casually dating hadn't even called to check on him. This realization both hurt and liberated Marcus. He had spent his entire adult life building wealth and status, but none of it had built meaningful relationships. The people who claimed to care about him were only interested in his money and connections. As weeks turned into months, Marcus found himself looking forward to work each day. The physical labor was satisfying in a way that board meetings never were. Creating something with his hands, seeing a wall rise brick by brick, gave him a sense of accomplishment that all his business deals combined had never provided. But most importantly, he was learning what kind of person he wanted to be with. He wanted someone who would care about Marcus the bricklayer, not Marcus the billionaire. Someone who would help neighbors carry groceries, share lunch with coworkers, and value character over cash. He had no idea that this someone was about to walk into his life in the most unexpected way possible. Marcus was finally ready to find true love. But first, he had to discover what true love actually looked like. Living as a working-class man was teaching him lessons that all his money never could. He was becoming the man he had always wanted to be, even though he hadn't realized it before. The stage was set for a love story that would challenge everything. Marcus thought he knew about relationships, trust, and what really matters in life. His greatest test was yet to come.